Hi, everyone. I'm Vladimir Dutit. We are watching all the news happening in the United States and around the world. Check out the screen behind me. If it is coming into the CBS News Broadcast Center, we will bring it to you live right here. This is CBS News 24/7. Many are saying that it is a make or break day for President Biden. He'll take the stage for a highly anticipated solo news conference as the calls for him to leave the presidential race get louder. Two very different stories presented during day one of testimony in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial. Court resumes in just a matter of minutes. We'll bring you there live. Plus, moments before takeoff, a tire blows out on an American Airlines flight, catching fire on the runway. We've got details on what happened. But we begin with testimony resuming in just a few minutes in Alec Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial. He has been charged in the shooting death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins during the filming of the movie Rust. Now, yesterday, we heard from the first sheriff's deputy who arrived at the scene after the incident. Body cam footage showed the frantic attempts to save Hutchins' life. CBS News correspondent Elise Preston is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She has been following the trial for us since the start. Elise, how are Baldwin and the jurors reacting to what they've heard in the courtroom so far? You've got a front row seat.
Yeah, I do, and I'm watching it all play out right there. I'll get to that in a second, Vlad. I just want to flag that we did watch Baldwin and the prosecution both just go in within the last 30 seconds. Now, back to what is going on inside the courtroom. You mentioned at the top of the show that both sides are laying out a very different story. So the prosecution, they are narrating this to be that Baldwin was incredibly reckless, that he would point the prop gun at folks during rehearsals and on set, and that he was negligent. And those actions are what prompted him to pull a trigger, and the bullet struck Halyna Hutchins and killed her. The defense is saying that Baldwin was just an actor. He was acting. He was on set. They specifically said that he was playing a character a century away, right? Because this was an old Western that they were filming. So as this is going on, you will see Baldwin paying very close attention. He's leaning in. He's taking notes. He's very engaged, as is the jury. The jury is taking a lot of notes. I want to point out that it is an older jury. I would classify most of them as being seniors of this community, but the jurors are taking a lot of notes. The judge instructed them at the very beginning that they would actually be allowed to watch or to ask questions as the trial unfolds, which is something that you don't typically hear, but the jurors are allowed to write down questions and pass them along through the bailiff to the judge. So they are very engaged. There's 16 jurors, 12 we know will actually decide the case, and 4 are alternates. But at this time, it's not known who the 12 will be. So all of the jurors are paying close attention, Vlad.
As are you. Elise Preston on the scene in Santa Fe, New Mexico for us. Elise, thank you very much. And of course, you can watch gavel to gavel coverage of the trial on the Inside Edition stream. You can find that at insideedition.com/live. All right, we want to take you now to Chicago. The family of Taylor Casey, who has been missing in the Bahamas since the middle of June, just held a press conference. They are seeking help from the FBI in their search. Let's listen.
This is so hard. Taylor, we love and miss you so much. Taylor, today is your birthday, and we all just want to say happy birthday, although it's not so happy because you are not here with us. The pain I felt 42 years ago while birthing you doesn't compare to the pain I feel on today with you missing out of our lives. The pain, the hurt, the agony is practically killing me. And not just me, your whole family, your friends, and all of your associates. When I cry so hard, I have to hold my eyes in, because I feel like every blood vessel in them is gonna burst and they're gonna pop out of my head. I miss your visits, bringing me flowers, your calls. I miss your voice. You're encouraging me. You're coaching me. You're going on outings with me. And oh, how I miss asking you if you have any other friends to call because you would call me so much. I knew you did have friends, but you just like calling your mother. Oh, how I just yearn for that call today. I wonder where you are. Are you okay? Are you in danger? Are you sick? Are you hurt? My nights are sleepless with worry about you. I am lost without you. We all are. Your sisters and brothers and nieces and nephews and cousins and friends, even people you don't even know, Taylor. And explicitly, your dear friends from the LGBT community, whom the Lord Jesus has used to create and wholeheartedly support the Finding Taylor Casey squad. And I do mean squad. Yeah. I do mean squad. Taylor, we love and miss you so much, and we need you back in our lives. God, please make it happen. We are relentlessly doing everything possible in our power to bring you home, Taylor. And as God is our strength, we will never stop looking and searching for you until you are found. We will never stop. And if you are in a position to help us find you in any kind of way, please do. We love you so much. Love, Cokie. That's a nickname Taylor gave me, Mom. And I just want to say, please help us find Taylor.
So, folks, what you're watching here is heart-wrenching press conference given by the family, and there you heard the mother of Taylor Casey. She went missing on June 19th in Nassau in the Bahamas. It would have been her birthday. There was a break in the case. The police in Bahamas say they did find a cell phone and a journal they believe belonged to Casey. They found that evidence in the water. She was there in Nassau at a yoga retreat on Paradise Island, and it's important for us to bring you the family's pleas for help. They are asking the FBI to help. Recall that a number of years ago when Natalie Holloway went missing in the Caribbean, it was front page news on every newspaper, on every broadcast network. Sadly, tragically, when it comes to missing Black and brown women, the coverage isn't just the same, but we're doing that here at CBS News 24/7 because it's such an important story, and you can just hear in the mom's voice her anguish, and all the family members there pleading for the FBI, but also awareness to come to her daughter's situation. So we're going to keep on that story right here at CBS News. Okay, let's talk politics now. It is a crucial day for President Biden. He's got a lot to prove to his doubters in a news conference that will be held later today. It is his first solo appearance before the press in months. Before that, he was working at the NATO summit, working during the NATO summit, we should say. Nancy Cordes is following all of this for us at the White House, and she joins me now. Nancy, this is a big day. I know the press conference, we talked about it yesterday, but just describe for our viewers what's at stake here for the president. It seems, Nancy, that some members of Congress, I think for all of us watching, we're like, okay, if the president knocks it out of the park this afternoon with the press, crisis averted. But it seems like some members of Congress are saying, no, it doesn't really matter what happens today.
Right. So that's the challenge for this White House, is that if things go fine, then most of the Democratic lawmakers who have concerns will say, OK, but what about the next time? What about if next time we see something like we saw at the debate a couple of weeks ago? And of course, if things don't go fine, then they'll say, see, this is exactly the kind of thing that we're worried about. So that's why it's been so difficult for the White House to try to put a lid on this. Every time the president comes out and says, this discussion is over, I have decided that I am staying in this race, you have more lawmakers say, well, we hope you make a good decision, and really implying that actually they'd like him to go back to the drawing board and do a little more thinking. But you're right that this is a rare occurrence. The last time that the president held a solo news conference was back in November of 2023 in San Francisco. So, we have opportunities to shout a question to the president here and there, but he could always walk away. He doesn't have to answer. In this case, he'll be taking questions, we hope, from a number of members of the press. And so we'll see how he does in that situation.
Nancy, let me just ask you about that op-ed, blistering op-ed from George Clooney in the New York Times yesterday. The president and his allies, the administration, hit back a little bit yesterday. A lot of people were like, hey, getting into a vitality match with George Clooney is not necessarily a winning message. I understand that the president and his supporters are saying at the grassroots level, it seems as if some of the polls are holding steady. But on the other, you've got Hollywood and the mega donors that contribute and will be instrumental in getting the president, should he choose to stay in the race, over the finish line. So how are they balancing the message to voters that Hollywood is jumping ship, but they do still seem to have grassroots support? I mean, Kamala Harris, speaking to her sorority yesterday, indicated that black women are still heavily supporting President Biden.
Sure. And, there's a new poll out today, a national poll that indicates that the race really hasn't changed since before the debate, that Joe Biden is still trailing slightly, but it's within the margin of error. And that's what the Biden campaign insists they're seeing in their internal polling as well. I think what was most problematic about the George Clooney op-ed is not necessarily the fact that he is George Clooney. Everyone knows who he is, but also because he was with the president 3 weeks ago. He was sort of an eyewitness who's now coming forward to say, hey, folks, I saw him in person, and he seemed a lot like he did at the debate. The campaign is furiously pushing back, of course. There was one source familiar with the plans who said, look, President Biden had just flown halfway around the world back from Italy overnight to be in Los Angeles for this fundraiser because that was the only night that George Clooney could do it. But then you also have individuals like the Finnish president, who's here in Washington for the NATO summit, who just said a short time ago that President Biden looked just fine to him when he was meeting with him behind closed doors. And so I think that that's the challenge for a lot of Democrats who are still on the fence on Capitol Hill, trying to make sense of what they've seen and what they've heard from a variety of different sources.
All right, Nancy Cordes at the White House, where it will be a very, very busy day. And Nancy and our entire White House team will be on top of it, so you won't want to miss a minute of CBS News 24/7. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
All right, what's left of Beryl has made its way to the Northeast, bringing heavy rain and even an apparent tornado, which hit a part of western New York. Flash flooding in parts of Vermont forced road closures and evacuations. CBS News correspondent Tom Hansen is joining me now from Vermont. You could see where he is standing. Tom, that's just one area, but I expect that there are roads like this all over.
Oh, absolutely, Vlad. We're standing in what appears to be a baseball field that is completely inundated with water. But just to give you a sense of how quickly this water has gone down, this area, this street level right over here, was inundated just about an hour ago. So we're seeing the water recede, which is good news. But this is what it's leaving behind, a layer of muck and mud that is coating streets all over these municipalities. Now, we're currently in Waterbury. Earlier, we were in a town called Barry, just about 20 minutes away from here, which is completely coated in dried mud. People are digging out there, and people are certainly going to start digging out here. Not to mention, they're going to be assessing the damage that this area has gone through because so many homes, the water ran up to the steps, if not over the steps, to a lot of the homes in this area. So definitely a long day for the people of Vermont, something we're going to be following very closely, Vlad.
Yeah, Tom, certainly it's good news that the water is receding, but when your house is inundated with water, the damage is already done. So we're hoping that people get the relief that they need. Tom Hansen for us in Vermont. Tom, appreciate you, brother. Thank you. Stay safe. Okay, more than 1 million people in the Houston area remain without power for a fourth day, and officials warn it could be days before power is fully restored. Now, the power outages come as residents face blistering temperatures with the heat index nearing the triple digits. Our Janet Shamlian is in Houston with more. Janet, we've been talking about this all week. You've been giving us updates on the power outages. What can you report this morning?
Vlad, good morning. First of all, I'm at a cooling center in Houston. This is the Balin Community Center. It's dual purpose, so they have people, you can come in here and plug in your devices and stay cool. There's also a long line outside waiting for 11 o'clock Central when they're going to just give out food and water. But yes, let's talk about those power outages. More than 1 million people in the nation's fourth largest city are starting day 4 without power. And there are increasing calls right now for accountability on the part of CenterPoint Energy. The Texas governor has asked the Public Utility Commission to look into the response. The mayor of Houston, John Whitmire, has said they need to do a better job, and the public here is frustrated. Imagine Jacksonville, Florida, right? That's a city of 1 million people. Every person in that city being out. That's how many people are still without power here in Houston on day 4 with feels-like temperatures into the 100s. There's just been poor communication from the company, people say. And in fact, people are using the Whataburger app. They say that is a better indicator of where power is out. Whataburger is a fast food chain in this region. That's a better indicator to find out where power is and where it isn't. So this story has really shifted to one of accountability. And when are we going to get these people back online? CenterPoint says it will have 700,000 people back online by Sunday night. That will leave 300,000 or more Monday morning without power. We're talking about vulnerable populations, Vlad. Senior citizens, many of whom are in high-rise facilities, without power, without working elevators. How do you get those people up and down? So centers like this, I'm going to give you a little bit look here. This is the Balin Community Center, have opened. People can come here, power up. Churches, YMCAs have opened, Lakewood Church, a mega church here, and it's really not a good situation still, Vlad.
Yeah, Janet, it feels as the weather has gotten more extreme over the last couple of years, every year we're talking about these types of issues in the state of Texas, which has to do with the way its unique power grid structure is set up. But thank you for bringing us an update on those folks who are struggling. Here's hoping that they get the help that they need. Janet Shamlian for us in Houston. Janet, thank you. All right, let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Andrew Kozak with the look at the national forecast. Andrew.
Hey, Vlad, good morning, and good morning to all of you. Yeah, we are talking about the remnants of Beryl. Obviously, we've talked about the tornadoes, the severe weather in upstate New York, and then, of course, the heat. That is an ongoing issue. And yes, it's summer, but this is even going to be a bigger issue as we head into the week ahead. Let's talk about what we're looking at, because we still, of course, have excessive heat out west, but it is starting to build again across the east as we head toward the end of the weekend and into early next week. So what we're going to see here is a bit of a break over the weekend for the East Coast, but that's going to come at a bit of a price with a chance for some flooding. And then we head into next week and we're talking about more excessive heat across the area. That system that brought this severe weather to upstate New York and some showers and thunderstorms to areas like New York City, Philadelphia, and D.C., it's meandering as a stationary front right now off the shore. Once that goes and kind of retrogrades and moves back in, it's going to trap some of this Atlantic moisture. And by the time we get into the day on Friday and Saturday, we're looking at some heavy rain. The flash flood risk for right now is minimal, but watch what happens when we get into the day Saturday. We are looking at possibly 2 to 4 inches of rain across the East Coast. Yes, that will reduce the temperatures temporarily, but Vlad, we're going to be talking about the possibility from flash flooding this weekend, at least Saturday night, from New York all the way down to D.C. and the Carolinas. Coming up, we'll have a little bit more of a look and an outlook at some of that big searing heat that's back in the forecast for next week.
All right, Andrew, no relief in sight for millions. Thank you, my brother. Talk to you later. Jury deliberations could begin today in Senator Bob Menendez's federal corruption trial. We're live outside the courthouse with the latest on both sides of the closing arguments. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. This morning, we are nearing the end of New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez's bribery trial. The lawmaker is accused of trading in political favors for gold bars and hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's facing charges including bribery, extortion, and acting as a foreign agent for the country of Egypt. CBS News New York's Elijah Westbrook is following the trial for us. Elijah, what's the latest today?
That's right. Well, Vlad, good morning to you. I can tell you the trial has began for the day right there across the street inside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. And as it stands, it looks as though the defense attorney specifically for the two businessmen who were allegedly tied to this bribery scheme are now having to wrap up their closing arguments. Once that process is done, the jury is then likely to get the case. Now, it's possible that the jurors could begin deliberating as soon as this afternoon, depending on how quickly matters wrap up inside the courthouse today. And we all know how these things go, right? The verdict could come down in the span of just a few hours. I mean, it could take several days, if not weeks. So, of course, we're going to have to wait and see how all of this pans out. In court yesterday, defense attorney Adam Fee persuaded the jury that Menendez is not a corrupt politician. He also called out the prosecution's line of evidence, calling it not credible and that it wasn't directly tied to this case. Of course, the prosecution is seeing it differently and says that there was a clear path of corruption in this scheme, which they say lasted more than 4 years. Now, Menendez's wife, Nadine, has also allegedly been involved in this crime. She and the senator are accused of using political influence to essentially benefit two foreign governments while helping 3 New Jersey businessmen. And we know that some of the bribes that were taken on were large lump sums of cash, gold bars, a payment made for mortgages, and even a luxury vehicle. Nadine's trial is expected to begin in August. Right now, she is said to be undergoing some breast cancer treatment. And Vlad, before we send it back to you, it's important to mention that the two are pleading not guilty in this case.
All right, Elijah Westbrook for us outside of the courthouse right here in New York City. Thank you, Elijah. The scorching heat across the nation is also impacting the growth of an invasive species. Some residents in the state of New Jersey say they are starting to see more spotted lanternflies. CBS News' Shosh Pedrosian talks to one expert about how these sweltering temperatures are actually impacting these insects.
So we have here some spotted lanternflies here. There is a congregation of them.
That's why Fabio Ulloa and his team at Prestige Pest Services are in Wallington, New Jersey today, preparing their tools and solutions to get rid of a problem area on a resident's property. This nuisance invasive species congregate together, but even though it might seem like small numbers, Ulloa says you have to get rid of them early.
Now they're growing, actually developing now. They're going to be medium-sized insects.
Residents say it's hard to kill all of these spotted lanternflies. As you can see, we were just in the area where the exterminator came through, but you can see these spotted lanternflies still crawling on one of the bushes right nearby.
Summer started coming along. We've been seeing a lot of lanternflies around, especially with the warm weather. They like to stay in the front of the house.
One expert says the heat might be impacting the life stages of the spotted lanternflies and how quickly we might see them become full adults.
We're not going to see a sudden explosion in the number of lanternflies because of the heat, but what we could see is that they could move more quickly through the different stages. Because we do seem to be ahead of schedule with spotted lanternflies this year because it's been so warm, we might see adults any day now.
Ulloa says his work continues at homes like this one and believes it's best to get ahead of an infestation before it gets worse.
Right now we have a lot of reduction for the spotted lanternflies. We have a lot of eggs and reproduction in here. Now it's been the 3rd year we're doing this on a monthly basis.
In Wallington, New Jersey, Shosh Pedrosian, CBS 2 News.
I can't kill them. I know you're supposed to. Can you? I don't like to hurt things, even insects. I know they're invasive. I'm sorry. It's not just lanternflies that we need to worry about. As the dreadful heat of the summer sets in and mosquitoes are out, I don't have a problem with those. I can kill a mosquito because of cases of West Nile, which are now circulating across the country. So what you need to know and how to stay safe. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. Feels like every day we're bringing you one of these stories about airplanes. This time it's a tire on American Airlines flight that blew out during takeoff. You can see the moment on your screen. The tire frayed and starting to catch on fire there. On the runway at Florida's Tampa International Airport, this happened yesterday. Emergency crews rushed to the scene. No one was hurt, but the plane, of course, had to be pulled from service. The FAA has launched an investigation. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has filed impeachment articles against Supreme Court Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. She's accusing the conservative justices of unchecked corruption over their failure to disclose gifts they received while serving the court. The articles of impeachment are unlikely to gain traction in the U.S. House, of course, which is controlled by Republicans. And new data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows inflation eased slightly in June. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, fell 0.1% last month. The index for gasoline fell 3.8%. Okay, today marks the last day of the NATO summit happening in Washington. Over the last 3 days, the military alliance has focused on China, the war in Ukraine, and defense spending, one of Trump's biggest hangups when it came to the coalition when he was president. CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazas is joining me now to talk about this. So, Olivia, this summit was years in the making because this is a celebration of sort of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The president picked this time for it to happen. He's dealing with some domestic issues, but give us some of the highlights of the summit, and are world leaders feeling comfortable going into this election?
Sure, Vlad, you're absolutely right. So this is supposed to mark NATO's 75th anniversary in the place where its charter was signed all that time ago. And you've actually seen some public grousing from allies who sort of regret that the president and his performance is so much in the spotlight and is detracting from some of the real achievements that the alliance has been able to come together and arrive at. I mean, you've had so far announcements, real concrete announcements for the continued support of Ukraine. Yesterday's declaration that was issued by all 32 members noted that, reinforced that continued support, said that Ukraine's path into European and NATO integration was irreversible. You've heard about these new announcements from the U.S. about a robust package of air defenses the Ukrainians are going to get, F-16s, new Patriot batteries. Alliance-wide, the NATO members have committed to delivering $40 billion in support to Ukraine next year as it continues in this conflict with Russia. There's also alliance-wide condemnation of Russia, which is notable, especially given members like Hungary need to sign off on these kinds of communiques. There was condemnation not only of Russia, but of its backers, North Korea, Iran, and notably China, which the alliance said is actively sending weapons components to Russia, which is a new kind of language for the kind of material support that Beijing has been known to be offering Russia throughout the conflict in order to boost its war machine. So there have been notable consensus-based achievements that the alliance has been able to strike over the course of this summit, but that's very much taken a back seat to all of these the concerns and focus on Biden's own personal performance.
Olivia, you're at the State Department. In the time that you were just breaking down what's been happening with this summit, the control room just alerted me that you have some breaking news from the State Department as it relates to what's happening in the Middle East between the war between Israel and Gaza.
That's right. Just today, just now, the State Department announcing a new slate of sanctions against Israeli entities operating in the West Bank that it deems have committed violent actions against Palestinians there. It's the latest such step that the U.S. government is taking in order to try to stop some of that violent behavior from continuing. We haven't seen a whole lot of diplomatic efforts on that front as these very delicate ceasefire talks are continuing. We know that they are progressing. We know that there's a hint of optimism that perhaps this time, really and truly, there will be a breakthrough. But the U.S. nonetheless sanctioning new entities, 3 individuals and 5 overall, operating in the West Bank in order to send a clear message that the U.S. does not tolerate that kind of behavior.
All right, Olivia Gazas for us at the State Department with that breaking news that just happened just seconds ago, which we can do here at CBS News 24/7 because that's what we do. Olivia, appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the President of the United States will take questions from reporters in a rare solo news conference that is happening this afternoon at about 5:30 p.m. A strong performance could convince the growing chorus of doubters, at least those that are not serving in Congress, that he can serve a second term, but any stumble could bring more calls for him to step aside. Today, a trio of top Biden advisors are heading to Capitol Hill to try to reassure Senate Democrats. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries will hold a news conference today where he's expected to focus on the support the president has, but also on the growing number of defections. As this all comes one day after Vermont Senator Peter Welch became the first Democratic senator to publicly call for Biden to drop out. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is following all of this for us from the Hill. Nicole, we've learned that Jeffries plans to convey the concerns of his members directly to the President of the United States. What is the temperature of things on the Hill as you see it now?
Well, again, I think it kind of remains to be seen because, quite frankly, many members continue to be all over the map. Yes, we have seen a small group of lawmakers come out against the president, suggesting that he should drop off the ticket and no longer remain the nominee. You've had some members who are standing by him 100%. And then you have those who are in the middle, who are still kind of in this wait and see mode, who are still weighing their options, looking, for instance, to see how the president does at this NATO press conference later today, looking to see how he may handle himself on the campaign trail in the coming days. As you reported, we do know that Biden campaign officials are expected to meet with Senate Democrats later today, but now we're hearing some griping from some House Democrats. Well, why doesn't the president come meet with us? Keep in mind the president's not meeting with Senate Democrats, but again, it just gives you a sense of kind of the tone and tenor of what we're hearing here on the Hill.
Nicole, let me ask you about the Black Congressional Caucus. I watched an interview recently on CNN with Maxine Waters where Abby Phillips was asking her about the concerns that perhaps some members of Congress have about the president's ability to serve another 4 years. And she seemed to sort of brush aside those concerns. And I wonder if she's indicative of how a lot of Black members of Congress are feeling at this moment.
Well, I think you could also look at the comments that she made last weekend at Essence Fest down in New Orleans, a festival that draws an array of African-American women and others who are within the African-American community. And she said at a panel there very clearly, there ain't going to be no other candidate. So, if you take, quote, Auntie Maxine at her word, she's drawing a pretty firm line in the sand. And we do know from our reporting that members of the Congressional Black Caucus did hold a call with the president earlier this week. Many of those members told me that the president was very clear, that he was concise. He discussed his agenda. He, again, kind of apologized for the bad debate performance, but indicated that he wants to move on, that he's in this race to win it. So by and large, many of the CBC members I've talked to still seem on board with the president. But again, I would note that the caucus hasn't issued an official statement in support of the president, even as the chair and many of its members have.
All right, Nicole Killian for us on the Hill, as always, with the late breaking details. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, as an earlier than usual heat wave bakes the U.S. summer, mosquito season is setting in as well. Experts are warning about West Nile virus circulating more than usual. Amy Kawada of CBS News Baltimore has more.
Well, doctors and mosquito control experts say now is really the best time to be proactive, especially because typical mosquito season lasts through September and October. The CDC is reporting 15 confirmed cases of West Nile virus so far this year in at least 11 states, including here in Maryland. The virus is spread by mosquitoes that feed on infected birds, then feed on us humans. Dr. Matthew Lawrence with the University of Maryland School of Medicine says typically you'll notice symptoms 2 to 6 days later, but it could also take up to 2 weeks. While Lauren says many people don't show symptoms, keep an eye out for a fever accompanied by a headache, body ache, joint pain, nausea, or a rash. And while it is rare, you could develop a neuroinvasive disease, which can lead to death. So how can you protect yourself from getting bit by these pesky insects? First, it's best to limit the amount of time you spend outdoors. But if you can't, here's another helpful tip for you.
The other method is personal protective measures, and that would be using insecticides when you're outdoors and also wearing clothing that has insecticide impregnated already in it. You can either spray the clothing yourself, which is what some people do with a product called permethrin, available in camping stores and online, or you can buy clothing that's already impregnated.
And speaking of clothing, experts recommend wearing long sleeve clothing, long pants, long shirts to protect your skin, especially at the time when mosquitoes are most active, which is at dawn or at dusk. Also, to protect your living quarters, your homes, try to dump out any standing water in your area. In Baltimore, I'm Amy Kawada for CBS News 24/7.
All right, we will get the latest on the scorching temperatures from coast to coast just ahead, where the numbers will hit triple digits and when we could see some reprieve. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. All right, happening at this very moment, President Biden has just arrived at the NATO summit. He was always expected to be there, but we just wanted to show you live pictures coming in. As you heard from our Olivia Gazis earlier in the broadcast, this is the 75th anniversary of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and this is meant to be, has meant to be a celebration of this key and crucial alliance that had weathered the storm of the Trump presidency, where Donald Trump, when he was president of the United States, had threatened to withdraw the United States from NATO because members were, in his words, not paying their bills. Of course, that was never really in the cards, but now you can see that the celebration is happening under the guise of what the president is facing here back home, which is blowback for his performance during a debate just about 2 weeks ago. So we're going to continue to follow what's happening there at the summit, bring you any developments as warranted right here on CBS News 24/7. Meanwhile, we're continuing to monitor the flooding in the Northeast caused by the remnants of Tropical Storm Beryl. Let's bring back CBS News correspondent Tom Hansen, who's following some breaking news for us. Tom, what are you learning?
Hey there, Vlad. Just moments ago, we have seen reports that at least one person has died from this catastrophic flooding. Now, I want to give you just a sense of what we're looking at here. You know, we're not going to go in the water. We don't know how deep it gets, but you can see the water line. Imagine this. That water line is about up to here on me, and that's where the water has receded from. You know, this storm system was powerful, it was fast, and it hit a mountainous terrain, causing all of the water that hit in the mountains to quickly siphon down into these lower lying communities that are in the valleys. And that's why you saw these powerful currents that hit certain structures, washed away parts of roads, washed away bridges. Now, we have a request into the governor's office just to understand what exactly happened here, where this person was located, and how this unfortunate tragedy happened. We'll be following that, and of course, we'll bring you some updates. But as of now, one person has died from this storm. Beryl still proving to be a deadly force as it blows through the Northeast. Vlad.
All right, Tom Hansen with that late breaking news for us from Vermont. Tom, thank you. Now back to the sweltering heat impacting millions from coast to coast. Kara Finstrom from CBS Los Angeles joins me now to talk about this. So, Kara, explain to our viewers here, what is it like on the West Coast? How are you feeling? How are the citizens of California feeling right now with this heat?
It has been hot. Now, the good news is it's supposed to be a couple degrees cooler where I am today than the 100-plus temperatures we've been having during this heat wave. So folks are out here trying to take advantage of this, and they are working out around an area here that's called the Loop around the Rose Bowl, where they have the famous Rose Bowl performances every year and the big games. They're out here getting that work in early because this afternoon it is going to be incredibly hot. I just spoke with the Pasadena Fire spokesperson who tells me they have seen an uptick in those heat-related illness calls. They're urging folks to really be cautious as they're out and about during the heat of the day, to stay hydrated and to take plenty of breaks in the shade.
All right, Kara Finstrom for us. Thank you, Kara. Appreciate it. Let's talk about what's happening in Israel. Peace talks there are on the brink. We're going to have a breakdown for you. You're streaming CBS News 24/7. A U.S. official tells CBS News that the administration will release a shipment of 500-pound bombs to Israel that were being withheld. That had happened since May. It comes as Israeli forces continue to press their offensive in northern and central Gaza. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams is following the latest on the war from Tel Aviv. Holly, good morning.
Good morning, Vlad. Israel's military has urged all residents of Gaza City to evacuate and head south and says that city is now a dangerous combat zone. Meanwhile, the United Nations says that the evacuation will, quote, only fuel mass suffering. Now, Gaza City was the Gaza Strip's biggest city before the war, with a population of over 500,000. This is the second time during this war that the entire city has been told to evacuate. Israel's military says it's targeting militants and their infrastructure and claims in just one neighborhood it's destroyed 8 tunnels. Our CBS News producer in Gaza, Marwan Al-Ghul, reports there was heavy bombardment of Gaza City overnight. Meanwhile, ceasefire talks resumed in Qatar, with both the CIA director, William Burns, and Israel's spy chief taking part, according to Israeli media. Hopes were raised for a deal last week after Hamas responded to a ceasefire plan outlined by President Biden back in May. But that optimism cooled after Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would only agree to a ceasefire deal that leaves the door open for Israel to resume fighting. And then Hamas said this week that the new assault in Gaza City could, quote, reset the negotiation process to square one. Vlad.
All right, Holly Williams with the latest developments from Tel Aviv for us. Holly, thank you. All right, happening now. Residents in Union City, New Jersey are being told to evacuate due to a gas leak. Our station, CBS News New York, is following this breaking news. Let's listen.
Break occurring just off the corner of Summit Avenue, and at the top of your picture, that would be JF Kennedy Boulevard. Traffic there for the moment remains open, although we can see some more first responders, emergency vehicles lined up over there. Again, we are seeing ambulances in the area as well as the fire department, but at this time, no reports of injuries, but there are reports of evacuations underway. This is a situation that began, we believe, within about the last half hour or so in Union City, and we're watching as some of those crews prepare to.
All right, folks, you've been watching CBS News New York as emergency crews respond to a gas leak in Union City, New Jersey. Let's bring in CBS News Philadelphia meteorologist Andrew Kozak with a look at the national forecast for us. Andrew, over to you, my friend.
Hey, Vlad, good morning. Good morning to all of you. I think the real 2 big stories we're going to be tracking today across the U.S., the heat that continues, and, of course, the chance that we could be looking at possibly some flooding rain across the East Coast. Let's bring you up and turn the clouds on and talk a little bit more about what we're seeing. All the clouds that you see across the East Coast right now, the big white blobs there, we're going to be talking about a stationary front that continues to stay right across anywhere from, we'll say, off the shore of Boston, New York, and then down toward Philadelphia. What that's going to do is trap some Atlantic moisture and get us into a situation where Friday and Saturday we could potentially be looking at some flooding rain. So we're going to track that, and we're also going to track the heat. So let's walk over to the monitor, show you what's happening out there right now. We are still looking at excessive heat out west, where we're looking at numbers that could be between 110 and 130 degrees. Yeah, still. In fact, even as we get into the next couple of days, it's hot, but then into next week, we might get a bit of a break out west, while the East Coast will continue to see hot temperatures well above average. Take a look at where we've been out west just in the last 24 hours. Areas like Furnace Creek living up to its name at 126 degrees, Phoenix 116. These numbers are all continuing to be underneath where we have excessive heat warnings. They continue all the way through the next couple of days. 90 today in New York, areas like Houston, 89 degrees, 98 in Dallas, so it's hot. And of course, the desert Southwest, we're continuing to see temperatures between 115 and 120 for Phoenix, over toward Reno, 103. East Coast again, heavy rain for Friday and Saturday, 2 to 4 inches. New York to Philly to D.C. Vlad?
All right, Andrew, my friend, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Okay, folks, everybody's talking about this. This is a viral moment. We had a case of life imitating art yesterday at an event with former President Barack Obama. Some comedians have poked fun of him for greeting people different ways. You recall this very famous Key and Peele sketch. Check out the former president yesterday in Las Vegas, where he saw the men's Olympic basketball team. Obama met the team before. He's greeting everybody, with the Steph Curry, dap, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, what's up, my brother? Then when he goes to the coaching staff, it's a much milder handshake. Obama is the best code switcher in the business. This is CBS News 24/7, and Encore CBS Mornings continues next.